Session 23 starts as our party makes its way out of the faithful Luthiel's encampment. We understand we are going south to the Children of the Blood Chalice encampment to try to convince them to give us time, or to see if we can convince them of what truly is the cause of this issue. As we make our way down, there's a few days' travel ahead of us. The first day seems to pass without issue, almost as if nothing is occurring. The party relaxes as we make our way down with our Hexerotaurus. The second day, though, we awake to a very different situation. The world around us seems to have been turned into paper, and the party is confused as to what has caused this. Due to this confusion, Parnox reaches out to his patron and is unable to make a deal for the notebook that they acquired previously in the Abyssal Plane, that the notebook Infernal that nobody's able to read. He was able to get information on what caused this. We find that after the notebook is taken through into the fugue plane by Ignotus, the Vendig of Secret, Parnox's patron, he gives Parnox the information that this is a curse, or the remains of a curse, from a powerful Unseelie Court wizard who was trying to loot a caravan. He was successful, and this caravan, though, still has some items that we could potentially go after. But we should be wary of the papermen that reside in this curse. As the party agrees to make our way south to see what we can find in this caravan, Ravana, Isaac, and Bismuth move forward towards the caravan once we find it further south. Bismuth ripping open these chests that have become nothing else but paper mache, but the items inside still seem untouched. We're able to find a few various items, and Tox and Parnox stand on the either side on an overhang, watching over them. As we try to remain prepared, none of us though are able to see the papermen as they appear, because they don't simply just come out of whether it be from a side of the cliff or whether it be, they seem to rise out of the ground. It's almost unfolded like origami from the paper mache paper around us. One immediately cuts Tox on the back of his neck, and that is how we are informed that they are surrounding the entire party. Thankfully, after the initial surprise attack, we are able to fight back and able to handle ourselves. Although the party does have to be careful. Ravana unfortunately goes down in the fight, as in addition to the potential damage that they could cause, being within just close range of these papermen seems to cause damage, almost as if we are being cut by the visible miniature knives, almost like paper cuts running across our bodies as we get close. As we get done with the first group of papermen rising, able to stabilize and raise Ravana, and Tox being on death's doorstep yet again, we see a second group of papermen come. Everyone at this point in time is injured and no longer able to fight to their fullest extent, and we decide the items we have is more than enough, and we make our way down, back around, and leaving the caravan. As we make our way out of the curse, we notice that parts of us that had slowly turned to paper are now turning back into normal, and we leave the curse behind us, hoping that it'll be gone by the time we get back. After this, the next day, we run into a familiar friend, or friends, depending on how you view them. The Crimson Killers, the hive mind of these carnivorous butterflies that Parnox and Ravana had met previously, where we had found the Star Miracle, an item that the party is that is still looking for a use for. We find them again, and they've at this point in time come across an identity. They now call themselves Buddy, and instead of trying to be a human, they decide to be an elf to see if that can help them change the minds of the towns that they're going in. For a trade of some keys that Tox had on his person, as well as the aberrant trident that we found previously, we are able to ask 4 questions of Buddy, the elf, the Crimson Killer hive mind. Tox is able to ask the question of how to get into the Last Wall Bastion, and finds that there's a project that's going to be occurring recently, or is that is starting, but to do so, you have to figure out how to hide your mark. And we know currently that there's no way that we know of how to do this. But if you're able to hide your mark, you'd be able to take part in the project. We also know that Parnox asked how to further increase the abilities of his slime, his attuned slime, and finds that one of the fruits that he's looking for is actually, luckily enough, potentially at the encampment of the Children of the Blood Chalice. We also ask if the Buddy seems to know anything about the black beasts in the Whisper Vale woods. And it is here where we learn some truly terrifying information. In addition to the relics that they've stolen, it seems to be that there's another magical item that they have, seemingly like a crown, but in the shape of almost like a lopsided trident. And upon wearing this, this is what is increasing their intelligence. There seems to be some partially intelligent black beasts beforehand, but this is increasing the amount of intelligent black beasts at a rate that none of us are truly prepared for. Finally, we ask about the path ahead. And from this, we are able to divulge two ways to go in the future, which leads upon the next day. We could go either to meet a group of 6 knights or upon the corpse of a fallen wizard. We decide upon the fallen corpse. Ravana, with little thought, decides to rush ahead to see what they can find on the wizard that has passed. And upon grabbing at the robes of this wizard, he immediately crumples to the ground as a contingency spell takes effect. The Bismuth tries to cast Healing Word and Cure Wounds. Nothing seems to work, as Ravana is pulled into almost like a spiritual realm for a moment and speaks to this wizard. The wizard tries to take control of Ravana, to consume their soul, to take their body and take control of them. But due to the Ravana's help from another soul, they're able to stop and make a deal that instead they will both leave and both reside in Ravana's body. And the necromancer or the wizard will wait until Ravana has passed, and then will take control of the body to exact his revenge. At this point in time, while Ravana's out, as the party begins looking, and Tox comes across the wizard's body, starts looking through it, and it is there that we realize from the spellbook we find, even though pages are torn out, that this is potentially a very powerful, powerful necromancer. As we see items like power word blank, blank touch, all of these various things, it seems this is a necromancer of the highest order. We see a black mark on his shoulder, similar to ours, but this magically branded was a black knife, meaning that this was some type of magical murder that occurred, and it was deliberate, as it were. As they're going through, suddenly Ravana comes back to, and we see the mark that was on the necromancer has shifted to Ravana. And we realize that Ravana now has another being residing in them. Now not possessed by one, but two separate spirits in addition to their own soul. On the 5th day, we come across another forge that we found previously, the Amber Forge of the Osmohatans. Parnox makes a very interesting decision. Now understanding how these forges work, they decide to drink a potion they had, one that would cover themselves in this iron wood that previously we understand the Ember Forge worked with to increase its ability in some way. As he covers himself in the ironwood bark, he decides to dunk his hands into this forge and able to withstand the pulsating heat as it travels up into the cracks of the bark and all over his body. He waits, and as the Amber Forge cools, he pulls his hand out, slowly waits for everything to cool before slowly shifting, making cracks at the amber that's slightly hardened already. After the potion effects wear off, he notices though he still seems protected, as he regains now a magical item, an amber chestplate, able to give him more armor without the negative connotations of normally medium armor. The final day, the party draws upon an abandoned farm with some vegetation, a well covered in what seems to be alchemical components. Parnox goes into this abandoned barn house just beyond this farm, opening the door, able to find at least a potion as well as a few empty flasks. He fills a flask with he fills a flask at this well, and this golden liquid with wisps of arcane energy seems to call out. As he stoppers it and hands the empty flask and this to Bithmith to identify, he realizes this potion seems to cause the enlarge effect, but at the expense that you would be covered in yellow feathers. The party also decides to take some of these giant vegetables that seem to have been growing potentially from these alchemical components and start making portions of them to turn into supplies, helping to appease the day of basically nullifying the need for today's supplies. We were able to do so at the slight expense that of a small amount of sanity, as we have to come to terms with these vegetables that are grown magically, something that we are not used to, and we all seem to be okay. Just not used to what we had. As the final day approaches, we come upon the gates of the Children of the Blood Chalice's encampment. We see familiar tents from the scavengers, and Arturius, our friend, of the leader of the scavengers. As we see them, though, also we see lights flare magically, almost as an alarm is set, and the gates begin to open. And suddenly we see what we assume to be the leader, or at least someone high within the very high within the hierarchy, step towards the gate, draw their sword, and ask us for what purpose we are here. And that, as he asks us what we are doing here, is where we end our 23rd session.